guys, we are live. It's Wednesday at 6 p.m. in the UK, and today we're going to have a big chat on calories. Just before we get started, has anyone else had that really crazy storm today? Just like came out of nowhere and was the loudest thing. And now look at the state of me. Like, is this not the most autumn outfit you've ever seen? Like, it's literally got leaves in the jumper. It's so autumny. It's May. Why is this happening in May? Anyway, the long story short of that is, because of the storm, I did not sleep well last night. So if I don't make any sense today, I apologise. Do ask questions throughout or afterwards, whatever. I'll do my best to answer them. The brain's not firing on all cylinders, so it might just be gobbledygook, but we're going to try our best. So, we're talking about calories today. There's a lot to go into with this, so buckle up is what I'm going to say. You might want to watch it back in like a couple of parts, I don't know, or just find the bits that are like interesting to you. But anyway, we're talking about calories because they seem to be like the buzzword of late. Like, all the people who had originally followed like Slimming World, Weight Watchers, all those kinds of things have kind of gone, okay, I'm off that. I'm going to still track stuff, but I'm going to track it more closely. So I'm going to go to calories, and like calorie counting is now the like in trend, the thing. I say now, I don't mean in like the last week or so. It's been a little while, but so I wanted to go into this, explain a little bit more about how it works. You know, what are calories, why are we tracking them, how useful is it to track them, things like that. So the first thing really to start off with then, what are calories? So they're literally just a unit of energy. Like, you might have watts for electricity, for example, or I don't know, I can't think of any other units of energy right now, but it's just a unit of energy, and that energy powers everything that's going on in the body, like literally everything. Not directly as calories, it has to be converted into other things to do the jobs, but that's the like initial source where it comes from, is from the calories that you take in. And it powers obviously the things that you would think of, like movement, that's the really obvious one, but also like thinking, like that takes a lot of energy just to keep your heart pumping, to digest properly. So like literally everything that's going on in your body requires calories. So, why are we interested in them then? Why are they like such a buzzword at the minute? Why are people talking about them? So, I just said that they power everything, and obviously that's going to require a certain amount. Okay, so your body needs a certain amount of energy to power it, the same as it will take a certain amount of electricity to run your house, to have the lights on, to have the washing machine going, whatever. It takes a certain amount of energy to make sure your heart's pumping, to make sure your brain's active, to make sure your gut's working, etc, etc. So, there are loads of factors that come into that energy and the amount you're taking in and the amount that you're putting out. And we're going to come back to that in a second. But the reason that we're looking at those two things, energy in and energy out, is because those are the things that directly influence your weight. And, you know, since the name of this group is Weight Loss and Body Confidence, that's the thing that most people are worried about. And when I say weight, I mean more specifically fat storage, I suppose, because your weight can be anything. Like, if you have a haircut, you're going to lose some weight. That's not necessarily what everyone's after. So you've probably heard it before, you know, you need calories in needs to be less than calories out to lose weight. So it's a really simple equation on the surface. So just imagine it like a pair of scales. If on the one hand, this is the amount of calories you're taking in, and this is the amount of calories that you're burning, that you're putting out, then you are going to, because you've got more energy coming in, it can't be destroyed or created. We can't just go, I didn't need that bit, get rid of it. It's just the law of thermodynamics. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. That's the way the world works. So because that energy is in and it needs to go somewhere, it's going to go into fat storage. So that's how we get those fat stores. If you eat exactly the same amount, so the energy in is exactly the same as the energy out, nothing's really going to change. And if the other way, if you're eating less than you're burning, this is when we get into a deficit. And this is when we're going to have to use those fat stores because the body still needs to do all those other processes that has to happen. So it's going to have to use those fat stores, and that's how we end up with fat loss. So, seems like a really easy equation, doesn't it? Just eat less than you're burning. It's not that easy. And this is why weight loss is just like for so many people. So, like I said, there's loads of factors. I'm not going to go really deep on all of them. I'm just going to name off a few just to like get you thinking like, oh yeah, I didn't even really like maybe even consider that might have an influence. So factors into energy input. So the energy that's going in. Now, obviously food, that's the obvious one. We know that we're getting calories and energy from food, sure. Different foods will obviously give you different calorie amounts, but also the way that you prepare that food, that's going to change the energy that it gives you. Also, the efficiency of your digestive system. So you will absorb energy and nutrients very slightly different to the next person. So that's another factor. Then there's also things like the amount of sleep you've got, how like rested and recovered you're feeling, how stressed you are, like what you're feeling, what your emotions are. Also, like your appetite and fullness signals, like how well are you adhering to those? Are you just eating blindly? Are you really listening to your body when it's hungry and when it's full? It's important to note here that those are not necessarily all biological factors. So what we look at is like a biopsychosocial model. So we're looking not just at the things that are physically happening inside the body, but what is going to influence you to choose different foods. Because, you know, we don't live in a vacuum. If we were in like a hospital or a prison or something like that where we're given our foods, then yeah, we can monitor them a little bit more. But in reality, that's not the world we live in. We're living in a world where we are being influenced. We're seeing adverts and thinking, oh, I really fancy that Big Mac. Or you have a really stressed day at work and you turn to the snack cupboard. Or this is me today, hasn't slept very well and you're just craving those simple carbs. So it's important we look at all of the factors that are going to influence that energy intake. As an aside, while we're here talking about just food, this is another thing that makes our job, I suppose, really difficult. So if you're calorie counting, the first thing that you're going to start looking at is all the nutrition labels. Oh, how many calories is this? How many calories from fat? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, those labels are allowed to be out by government guidelines by about 20%. So, yeah, it's not very helpful. If you're eating like 1,000 calorie meal, you know, like a ready meal or a sandwich that's like 500 calories, that's a lot of extra calories that you could be totting up without even really realising it. So, yeah, that's annoying. So those are some factors that influence the energy that you're taking in. So factors that influence the energy you're putting out. There's a lot of those as well as you can imagine. We're just going to touch on a couple really quickly. So the first one is your metabolism. You've probably heard that. Someone's like, oh yeah, I've just got really good metabolism. That's why they can inhale, you know, a 6-pack of donuts and be fine. Also, one that's really interesting is the amount of heat you produce. So some people just run really hot, don't they? They're always like radiating heat. My husband, Mark, he's like this. He's always just so hot. He's like my own radiator, which, you know, is good because it saves on electricity bills. And I'm completely the opposite. I'm always cold, like hands are cold, nose is cold. So yeah, that takes energy to produce that heat. And if you're putting more into your heat production, then you need to take more energy in. Obviously exercise, people know about that. If you're exercising, you're burning more calories, not just exercise but like purposeful movements, and maybe you're making an effort to walk the dog or whatever else it might be. Then we've got non-exercise movement, and we're going to come back to this in a minute, but it's basically all the other stuff that you do. We've also got all those things that I was talking about that are happening inside the body, your heart beating, your digestive stuff going on, blinking, just all those other things that are happening that you're not even thinking about. Breathing, they require energy, they require calories. Then we've got the ones that we can't change. Genetics, you know, you are a certain age, you have certain genes, you are born a certain sex. you have a certain amount of like muscle mass compared to other sexes. That's why we mentioned that. And then also your body composition. So people who do a lot of resistance or weight training, they tend to have more muscle mass, which requires more calories to keep alive. So then they're going to burn more daily. So as you can see, on both sides, we've got loads of factors influencing the energy in and loads of factors influencing the energy out. So it just gets a little bit tricky, doesn't it? So there are loads of things that we could go into detail on all of those, but we're not going to do that. I've just picked the two that I think are going to be the most useful and like influential for you guys to know and understand. So the first one is that non-exercise activity I was talking about, or you might hear it as NEAT, N-E-A-T, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And it's basically all the other movements you're doing that is not you going to an exercise class or you doing specifically weight training or going for a run. Those things are purposeful exercise movement. All the other stuff you're doing, that's NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So all the things like walking up the stairs to the bathroom, or chasing the dog around the house when it's got a toilet roll. I don't know why that came to me. I don't have a dog. I do have a job. Fidgeting. If you're sitting and you're like tapping your toes, or you're like, you know, can't sit still, that's burning energy. It's not an exercise. You didn't choose to sit there and like click your fingers or whatever you're doing, but it is taking up calories. It is burning energy. Cooking dinner. So just all that other stuff, all that other movement, like this. This is NEAT. This is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the way I talk with my hands. So it's really interesting because so many people are really, really focused on the exercise, and they're like, right, I must get my workout in and I must make sure I burn a certain number of calories, or I must go to the gym for an hour. When in reality, for most people, their exercise calories are only accounting for maybe like 10% of their total calorie expenditure. Like, that's not really that big a deal. I'm not saying don't exercise. Absolutely, I think we should exercise. It's really good for the body in loads, like so many different ways. Not weight loss, just so many other things. But when people, what you don't want to do is get into that mindset of like, oh, I don't deserve to eat this food because I haven't burned it off at the gym. That's not how it works. It's not, you know, it's only a small proportion of your calories. And those calorie trackers on the machines at the gym are not accurate. So anyway, so you can increase your daily calorie burn without having to feel like you've got to get breathless or lift really heavy or whatever else you're doing, just by maybe you fancy something from the corner shop and you decide to walk there instead of taking the car, or maybe you just play with your children for a little bit, or maybe you climb the stairs yourself instead of asking your husband to get stuff for you. That's me. That's what I always do. I wait till he goes upstairs and then I'm like, oh, well, you get the thing. But you could do it yourself and then burn some extra calories. You could even just like blink more. That would burn more calories. I'm joking, of course. We don't want to just, that's weird. But that does bring me into a really interesting discussion on metabolic adaptation. So, sounds pretty complicated, and it's not really. It's going back to that factor of metabolism. So I'm going to try my best to explain this with my tired brain fog brain. But we mentioned earlier that some people are able to just sort of like look at a donut and feel like they've instantly put on 5 pounds, and some people can inhale a whole 12 pack and nothing really happens to them. And it's all dependent on their metabolism and how like quickly it runs. So your metabolism, it determines how many calories you are going to burn. But what's really important to note here is that it is not static. So you are not born and you need 2,000 calories for your body to run. And it's not even that once, yeah, of course, because you're smaller as a baby and then you're going to grow up and you're growing, blah, blah, blah. It's not even that once you reach adulthood, that's it, it stays there. It's really influenced by the foods you are taking in and the amount of energy you are taking in. So let me try and explain this the best way I can. Let's imagine that at the minute your body requires 2,000 calories to power it, to do everything absolutely optimally. It's going to digest really well, you're going to be moving the right amount, you're not going to feel sluggish, all of that stuff, everything's performing just where you want it. And that costs 2,000 calories. But you've got a little bit of extra flab somewhere, so you've decided that you want to lose a little bit of weight. So you're going to cut your calories down. And let's say you cut them down to 1,800. So now we're in a deficit. So we've got to make those 200 calories up from somewhere, and we're hoping it will be from fat stores. And with a small deficit like that, it should be. But what happens is you cannot live on 800 calories for the next 3 years and still be in a deficit, because your body is an adaptation machine. And it's a good thing and it's an annoying thing, because your body realises, and this takes about 2 to 3 weeks for this to happen, so it actually isn't very long, you don't get long in this deficit. Your body goes, hold on a minute, we did have 2,000 calories coming in and we could work with that, but looks like that's gone for a bit and now we're only getting these 1,800. I don't want to starve, I don't want to lose all of these fat reserves that I've got in case the situation might get worse. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slow everything down slightly, and we're going to run at 1,800. Well, now we're back at 0. So we did have that deficit of 200 calories, but the body has now slowed everything down just that little bit, and you won't even notice it. It will be things like you will blink fewer times a day, and that's why I made that little segue. It will be things like you just don't digest food as quickly as you did before. And how are you going to notice that? Because that's going on inside. You're not monitoring your digestive processes. It will be little things like you don't tap your toes as much when you're watching the telly anymore. Just those tiny little things. Everything just starts to downregulate. So anyway, you're eating your 1,800 calories. You're thinking, yep, I'm in a deficit. But your weight loss stalls. You reach a plateau. So the obvious thing to do is go, well, I need to eat fewer calories. So now we start eating 1,600. The body is now running at 1,800. We're eating 1,600, so we're back in that 200 calorie deficit. Perfect. But guess what's going to happen? Yep, 2 to 3 weeks time, the body's going to go, oh God, here we go again. So I need to slow everything down to now run at 1,600, and that will just keep happening. Now there comes a certain point when obviously the body's just like, right, I give up. I'm starving now. I'm just going to die. But within reason, that's what's going to keep happening. And it works the same way going up. So don't lose hope. If you have worked your way down to like 1,200 calories and your body is now zeroed out, it's plateaued, don't think, oh, I can't get any lower than this. This is it. I'm stuck here forever. Because remember, your body's an adaptation machine. So you can make it work the other way as well. You can add like a few hundred calories in. You could go up to like 1,300, 1,400, and your body's going to go, yeah, all right, we've got food coming in. Yeah, let's rev up. Let's get excited. And everything will start just rising up again. And then you add a few more, couple of hundred calories in, and everything starts speeding up again. So this is why I don't suggest to people that if they're regularly eating 2,000 calories a day to just go, I'm just going to go straight to 1,200 because that would be the quickest way to get there. Because whatever happens in 2 to 3 weeks, your body is going to adapt to whatever number you give it. So don't just make one giant leap. Give yourself some different steps on the way down. Like you wouldn't jump straight off the edge of a cliff. You would take the steps to get down there. So that's why we don't want to do those massive calorie deficits. We don't want to cut out entire food groups because we need to give the body a chance to adapt as many times as possible. That's how we're going to get the most out of our fat loss deficit. So I hope that made sense about the metabolic adaptation, because that to me is the most useful bit of information to understand, because you can kind of understand like, why is your body plateauing, what is happening, I've made such a big calorie deficit, why is this not working, I'm broken. You're not broken, your body's actually working the way it should. So I've just said that tracking calories is really inaccurate because all the food labels are wrong. Well, not necessarily wrong, they're doing their best. It's a best guesstimate. And I've said that all the trackers on the machines are not telling you the correct calories. So why bother tracking at all? Let's just guess on everything. Do you know, in some ways, yeah, you don't need to track your calories. In some ways, I do think it can be really powerful for some people because it can bring a lot of awareness. Because some people literally have not got any clue of like where their food budget is going, not like a money budget, but their calorie budget. They're just eating, and maybe they eat 3 chocolates a day and they don't actually really realise the number of calories that are in those, and then they see it and they're like, oh wow, okay, now I completely understand that. So it can bring a lot of awareness to people, and it can be really powerful in that way. But, you know, it's not sustainable. So we can't do this forever. I mean, you could do, but what sort of life is that for the next, I don't know how many years you've got left on the earth, but it's probably quite a few. Do you want to spend your time logging in the app, getting out your scales, weighing it all out? Probably not. So we can do like a little bit of trial and error. Do the calorie counting for like a couple of weeks, see what happens. Yes, it's not accurate, but at least you're working within a range that for you. So if your tracker says that you are burning 2,000 calories and your app says that you are eating 1,500 and you are not losing any weight, then you can just take it down a little bit, and then when you do, you know you're in a deficit. And it doesn't really matter what the numbers themselves are, as long as you're just keeping it consistent within those 2 things that you're using, like your tracker and your app. So I wouldn't focus too much on the specific number of it. Just use it as like a feedback loop. See what's happening and then adjust accordingly. And this is where a coach is really good at helping you, because they can look into the data and read like, oh, have you gained weight because, you know, you've just stored water, or are you actually gaining weight, etc., etc. Anyway, so the last thing that I just wanted to touch on was the quality of calories. So we've talked a lot about how they work, how we can like track them, but are all calories created equally? And the answer is no, very much not so. A calorie is a calorie, that you can't dispute that. A calorie is a calorie, but as you might imagine, there's a few other factors that go into it. The first thing that I just want to come to, because this felt like I could slide this in here nicely, is meal replacement drinks. I am so sick of seeing these everywhere. This is going to be the thing that loses you 4 stone in like 2 days. Okay. Look, I've got no option with people drinking their calories. Some people are trying to put on weight, and drinking calories is a really good way of doing that because it does not make you feel full. Let's just remember, it does not make you feel full. We're going to come back to that. So that's really good if you're trying to gain weight and you're struggling to get all the food in. They also are really good if you don't have any time to eat. I would rather you got some nutrients in than starve. Or, you know, sometimes they can work really well after exercise. You can just get some quick calories in to start recovering your muscles if there's a long time between you getting home and cooking dinner, etc. So look, I don't hate all drinks, but what I do hate is people that are saying that meal replacement drinks are the way that you're going to lose all of the weight. Because no. Because there are so many ways that you can do this better without paying out for crap products and without sacrificing your mental health, because essentially that's what's going to happen. So look, I said earlier that drinks do not make you full. So what does make us full? What does make us feel full? 3 top things really. Adequate protein. Protein releases those satiety hormones, makes us, literally tells the brain, yep, we're full now, we're done. Adequate fibre, and also like the physical amount of space that the food is taking up in your stomach. So the shakes maybe can tick one of those boxes, like maybe they've got protein in them, but they do leave you feeling really hungry because they're not taking up that much space, and they almost certainly do not have fibre in them. They might say that they're adding powdered fibre or whatever in there, but it's not actually the same as veg. So why are we trying to replace meals in the first place? What is wrong with a meal? People have been eating meals for centuries, millennia, long before all of these meal replacement companies came out, and they were doing just fine. And what are we replacing them with? Because those drinks contain calories, and if we were to eat a meal, that also contains calories. So to me, it looks like we're just replacing the one thing with another, but I would argue that the meal replacement drinks are of a lower quality. So this is how this ties in. There is a link. Because those calories in the meal replacement drinks are not coming with the micronutrients from eating fruit and vegetables. They're not coming with the fibre that's going to work properly. They're not giving you the fullness. And even if they do have those micronutrients added in, because this is the thing I'm seeing lately, lots of them saying, oh yeah, we add all these multivitamins made from whole foods. Just eat a whole food. Just eat a whole food. What is wrong with a banana? You don't have to crush up a banana and powder it and then put it into a shake. Just eat a banana. So yeah, we also, last week we learned that the body just doesn't absorb those micronutrients as well from supplements as it does from actual whole foods, because they were literally grown and designed to work that way. So yeah, don't do it. Don't waste your money. Anyway, so finally rounding off on these, do calories vary in quality? Yes, they do. A calorie is always a calorie, yes, but some of them are going to help us keep us feeling full. So like protein, calories from protein, they're going to help us feel full. Some of them are going to bring micronutrients along for the ride. So if we're eating fruit and veg calories, they're going to be loaded with fibre, vitamins, minerals, all that good stuff. Some of them are going to help us digest the food better. And some of them are going to help us build muscle mass, which eventually is going to help us with so many other things, but for the purpose of this group, to burn more calories. So yeah, a calorie is not necessarily always the same quality as another calorie. Just as a quick note as well, processed foods, we usually absorb less energy from those than we do from whole foods. Now, that doesn't mean that if we eat like a chocolate and it says at 200 calories, oh, I don't have to worry about that because I'm not going to absorb all the energy, so it's actually only 150 calories. It doesn't work like that. But the actual usable energy that goes into the system is less. The amount of calories is still the same, but the usable energy is less. So because we still need extra energy to power our body, guess what? We have to eat more. And those processed foods don't really tend to leave us feeling full and satisfied, so we want to eat more of those. So the message is really, eat whole foods. That's what I'm saying. Now, I said earlier that there's so many factors, biopsychosocial factors that go into eating. So I'm not saying don't ever eat chocolate, don't ever eat crisps. Do those things, but just try and focus on getting whole foods and then you'll be pretty good. You don't have to worry about too much else. You don't have to weigh out every grain of rice. You don't need to weigh out the jam you're putting on your toast if you're just focusing the rest of your diet mostly on eating whole fruit and veg and good protein sources. So that's pretty much all I've got to say on calories. If that has sparked any questions, or I haven't explained anything very well, or you've got a bit of an interest in something, just send me a message or put a comment on the video. That's absolutely fine. Happy to answer that. Next week there will be no live at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. I've got parents' evenings, unfortunately. But the following week, I've got a few ideas for it. But as you know, this group is for you guys. I've got so many things I could talk about, like sliding in that meal replacement drink thing in there. But I want to make it as useful for you as possible. So if there's anything that you want to know about, just put it somewhere. Message, comment, whatever. Just let me know what you want to know about. So other than that, I hope that calorie talk was enlightening. Do with it what you will, and I will see you soon. Bye.